Welcome to our podcast, and today we'll be talking about the 1920s.
Oh yeah, the 1920s.
Yes.
All right. Well, one thing I do remember from the 1920s is the Scopes trials. The Scope trial was possibly one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. Like I love it. So it basically talked about this teacher getting like accused of teaching Darwin's theory of evolution, um, and it wasn't really permitted at the time because the Butler Act. It was this act that just basically said you can't teach evolution because it went against the Bible, which words for that were divine creation of man. Anyways, during that trial, William Jennings Bryan was prosecutor and Darrow for the defense. And basically, the entire trial, Darrow was just slandering the Bible's name, and eventually the jury came to the decision to like basically put it down to one question, and then it kind of just went from there, and then he kind of lost it. He got fined $100, went to Supreme Court, and it just got turned over. That's something to speak easy about.
Very controversial.
Yeah, pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Something else about speakeasies, prohibition. Let me tell you. All right, so by definition, legal and governmental restriction of the sale, production, and transportation of alcoholic beverages. It was in 1920 to 1933. It was enforced with the 18th Amendment. And throughout this, I mean, it was just a whole lot. There was the domestic violence cases, child abandonment, and it was all believed to be alcohol and it being the purpose of it. And then there was a lot of cultural changes. The Women's Christians Temperance Movement was an organization, and they promoted abstinence from alcohol. And women had a huge effect on this because it was mostly alcohol was a really big homer, you know. And women, they wanted to keep the family together. There's no reason to split apart. So they went ahead, and then there was movements all over the nation about it until it was finally actually put up for discussion in 1920. It was actually appealed in 1919. It got the support that it needed only 11 months and went active in 1920. Is, as it said in there, directly from the 18th Amendment. After 1 year of ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquors within the importation thereof or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. With all the lack of alcohol, the demand for it really grows. So underground business and criminal organizations really were on like the high rise. Like Al Capone was big during this time. Everybody knows who Al Capone is. He had these things called speakeasies. They're like hidden underground taverns. You illegally buy alcohol and just enjoy nightlife. But it was really bad kept secret. So they had to pay off everybody with hush money to make sure they were quiet about it, especially police officers, make sure they turned their cheek and kept them out of investigations. But anyways, a lot of cultural changes there.
Yeah, speaking of cultural changes, flappers were a prime example of this. They were typically young women with like short hair, they wore short skirts, and they spoke pretty freely, and they showed a lot of progressivism and really just did whatever they wanted. So I feel like with them given the right to vote, this gave them a lot of confidence and maybe contributed to this. But this is what they looked like. Having fun, doing whatever they want. Very free.
Some baddies too.
Yes, yes. Jazz music was very popular. They played at the Argonne in Chicago, so a lot of very popular venues that made it really just take off. So, wasn't sports very popular during
very
this time?
big, very big. It was like a great way for Americans to enjoy themselves after World War One. So like professional baseball, college football, and boxing was really big at that time. Like Babe Ruth, Red Grange, and Jim Dopper. Yeah, like
those guys.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Jim Dopper.
hmm Yeah, some events that happened was like August 26, 1922. Great Britain and Ireland lost to U.S. in the first Walker Cup. And then in 1923, April 18th, the Yankee Stadium opened and then that same year they won the championships.
No way.
I know, but like
Wow.
I'm really confused on how they got there. Like railroads, like
You don't know about that, do you? Henry Ford, he actually came out, he popped out, he made car ownership realistic for all average Americans. So all the people, they were driving in the new Ford Model Ts with all them flappers, with all their illegal alcohol and going on to all them sports events. Ford innovated by using the assembly line to mass produce his automobiles, which enabled the Model T's price to be $850 in 1908 to $300 in 1924. So he made the price so that everyone could drive around.
Yeah.
Because automobiles, they were new, all that stuff. Same thing with planes, you know. Before, or actually after World War I was over, several national governments sold their planes at low prices. Pilots who were like celebrities, because rarely anyone was a pilot. They bought and they flew their planes in barns, and they would, you know, do the little tricks. You ever seen them? They do some backflips,
Like a
barrel roll.
barrel rolls.
I've seen a bunch
at
of
the
those.
barns. That was called barnstorming. And then basically they made a revolution. Small airline industries, they began to blossom in the 1930s. Companies like Boeing and Ford developed planes, for air travel. Phones, on the other hand, they also came out during this time, and that's how they made all the technology functional, like radios, telephone lines, TVs.
Ooh.
Like imagine where you would be without those.
Yeah. Speaking of radios, like I said, the jazz music was very popular, but the reason for this was the Harlem Renaissance. So as a result of the Great Migration, Black communities were moving into these neighborhoods, and they were really just spreading their culture everywhere with like art, dance, and things like that. So like Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, ring a bell? Ring a
oh
bell?
yeah,
Yeah.
very much.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Bessie Smith was a popular dancer, and all these people really just included a lot of African American themes in their work. So
Yeah, I think without jazz, we might not have like Cardi or like Travis Scott.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you don't
definitely
know
not.
that.
He's innovative.
Like, it
Yeah.
was
Not to harp on an old subject,
Truly.
but
a lot of change in this time period. A lot of
Yes.
massive change.
Oh yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest
Good
changes that I
change.
heard of was the railroads really like in a decline due to the improvisation of the automobile.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is all for the
Yeah.
podcast. I hope you guys had an informational experience, and we'll see you guys at the history podcast for sophomores.
See ya.